All right, folks, we're back. We took a break to do some math. Impossible to have fun without a little bit of math, right? Currently, Saruman has 40 points, marshalling points, and to Gandalf's 35. And so the question is whether we call a free council at the end of Saruman's turn. And it's not as easy a question as you might think, because with Scorba and Entagast at-home manifestations in play, all major and greater items have an additional corruption point, which puts Aragorn at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 corruption points. And Saruman is at 5, and Theoden is at 4. Yeah, that is not ideal. So if we were to call a free council, we're basically done, and we would remain, all of our characters would remain in their current state when it comes time to do the corruption check. I think it's only fair that if we do decide to call a free council, I mean, were I thinking in that direction, were I an individual player thinking in that direction, I would have used Anforthy Hasten to untap one of the characters in my Wizard's Company. So if we decide to do that, I'm going to allow Saruman to do that to untap someone in his company. I was already thinking in that direction and moved Baragon to untapped. But yeah, yes, it's so you might think, well, it's obvious. You should play another turn, see if you can get some of these corruption cards off of you. But the problem there is that as soon as I get corruption cards off me, I could just as easily get some on me. And while my deck has been whittled down to largely hazard cards, so has my opponent's. And so, yes, I could try and remove one of these more easily removable corruption cards, like Lure of Nature, which is worth 2 corruption points. But I've seen him. He has somewhere in his deck, Alone and Unadvised, which adds 4 corruption points, and could be played on Aragorn because he's in such a small company. So yeah, it's not as easy as you might think. And every turn we drag this on is just more potential corruption checks that Aragorn and Saruman can be forced to take. So it might be better just to call it now and only have to take that one more. And if Aragorn passes his corruption check, and Saruman, it's likely that Saruman wins the game. And if one or both of them fail, then actually, if Saruman fails, well, I have to see how that works out. If he's not eliminated, that doesn't lose him the game, does it? I'll check on that. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge if it comes to it. But yeah, you see my quandary. As Saruman, I'm thinking that this dangerous situation isn't going to get any less dangerous. So I'm just going to call the free council. So in light of that, I would have played Anforthy Hasten to untap Baragon so that he can provide a little bit of support during that final corruption check at the free council. And so yes, he would have done that. And so I know I discarded 1 already and then brought my hand back to 8, but we'll just bring our hand back to 8. Anforthy Hasten, okay. But I can't play that one. We're at the end. We're done. We've gone through the end of turn phase, and we are calling a free council. We'll see if that's a mistake or not. But yeah, we're learning a lot about this, the strengths and weaknesses of the Saruman Aragorn deck, and a lot of strengths. The Palantir of Orthanc is amazing. Aragorn has been great when he hasn't flaked off, but yeah, we need to mitigate the potential for corruption better, as we've seen with this very heavy corruption play deck of hazard deck of Gandalf's. All right, and so we come back over, and that means that since the free council's been called, we have but one more turn to do what we need to do, and so yeah, let's see what we do. So again, we're at 35 to their 40. Assuming the worst, that they somehow pass all their corruption checks. Seems unlikely, but assuming the worst, we're going to lose unless we make something happen. Another thing we could safely assume is that they may have another muster disperses over there. So, yeah, we also have a bit of a quandary. Do I take someone out from under Gandalf's direct influence and attempt to split up into two parties and go and recruit the Eagles and the Wood Elves, or do I just everyone stay together and we all just go try and recruit the Wood Elves? Glorfindel has great potential to recruit the Elves. Gandalf, let's see. So we have 7. Yeah, 7. We could take Bilbo out from under Gandalf, which would give him 6 direct influence, and we could try for the Eagles and the Elves. Gandalf could go attempt to recruit the Eagles, Glorfindel the Elves. That's a thought. Not sure. Because of that reaching shadow permanent event over there, so we'd be moving through Rhudaur, the High Pass, Anduin Vales, and then the guys going to meet the Elves to Thranduil's Hall would be going through Woodland Realm. Anduin Vales and Woodland Realm act as shadowlands for the purposes of playing hazards because of that permanent event. So they could basically do their worst. Maybe they can't play Nazgul, but they could play pretty much everything but. Yeah, so that is a concern. We do have quite a few cards to mitigate problems. Muster disperses is a concern. If we took Bilbo out from under, yeah, we would have 2, all of 2. So a muster disperses would likely torpedo one of our factions. Probably only 1. And if we're going to get 2, yeah, but then we're splitting up. But then we're creating smaller hazard limits. I think we go for it. All right. So I'm taking Bilbo out from under Gandalf. Now, I could pass him this lesser ring. Well, that's another thought. I could pass Gandalf the lesser ring. Okay, so without Bilbo under him, he has, 6 influence to get these great eagles. Maybe that's not the play. Yeah. Alright, so here's how we're going to do things. Or put Gildor under Glor... No, that doesn't make any sense. Okay. Yeah, we're going to do things like this. And... so, Glorfindel and the dwarves are going to Thranduil's halls, and Gandalf and Gildor and Bilbo and Goldberry are going to the Eagle's Eyrie. Alright. There we go. And we're traveling from Rivendell, not Lorien. So our sight path is Rhudaur, the High Pass, Anduin Vales, and then for these guys, the Woodland Realm. So, wilderness, borderland, but those borderlands are shadowlands for the purposes of playing hazards. wilderness, shadowlands. Yeah. Okay. But I'm going to do Gandalf first. Alright, so we're traveling to the Eyrie, and we can draw up to 1 card. Merry. Alright, well. Uruk Lieutenant. Okay. So their hazard limit is currently 3. 3. And they're traveling with that other company of 3. Alright. This is the more vulnerable company. So, we're going to play Orc Guard. 5 strikes of 8 on them. Well, they'll almost certainly cancel that out. Won't they? Yeah. So this would be 5 strikes of 7. This would be this would be 1 strike of 12, and then if this follows the Uruk Lieutenant, he actually gets an additional buff to making him 14. So 1 of 12, 1 of 14, as opposed to 5 of 7. 1 of 12, 1 of 14, or 5 of 7. I was going to play this one to try and draw out the attack cancellation, but it's likely that they will. It's likely that they will take it on in that case, because it's only 5 strikes of 4 at that point. If Bilbo tapped, he'd be at 1. If I applied those 2, he'd be at -1. -1 to beat 4. Would they even cancel it? I'm going to say that they would cancel it. Okay. Little do they know that we actually have concealment. So instead of tapping Gildor for his attack canceling powers, I'm going to tap Bilbo to cancel this attack. I mean, we could take it on. The problem is Bilbo would be down to -1 prowess if they put those additional strikes on him. And yeah, I mean, he could die. He could die. And we lose 2 extra marshalling points if he dies. I just don't think it's worth it at this point. Not worth the 1 measly marshalling point I would get for them. Alright, so that's 1 of 3. And they faced an orc, so we could put the riders on them. We could put the riders on them. Obviously, they're likely to cancel that. Alright, so 2. The second hazard is I play the Witch King of Angmar as a permanent event. The third hazard is that I tap him to take a card from my sideboard and put it into the play deck. Only 1 hazard. And I'm going to take Hall of Home. I think that has more potential to pay off than throwing some Wolf Riders at them. So they arrived, and we bring our hand back. Make sure it's good and shuffled. We bring our hand back. Muster disperses. Yes! Okay, alright. And then we bring our hand to 8. It is at 8. So they have arrived at the Eyrie. Fantastic. Oh, and I'm going to play Enforthy Hasten just to untap Bilbo. I think there's last chance to play that. So we're going to do it. And now, Glorfindel, Gloin, and Balin are going to go from Rivendell to Thranduil's Halls. So their side path is Wilderness, Borderlands, but both of those Borderlands act as Shadowlands for the purposes of playing hazards. Okay, and the hazard limit is 3, and we can draw up to 2. We're going to draw 1. And then I think we'll draw another. Mouth of Sauron, okay. I'm not getting any more rings this game, so I'm not getting Mary either. Alright. And this team may draw up to 2. Now, they only have a hazard limit of 3, so... Ooh, minions stir. 1. And why not? Orc Guard. Okay. So many Orc Guards. Okay, this is literally the last hazard. This is literally the last movement and hazard phase of the game. So we've got to play Muster Disperses. And so we're going to try and disperse the Blue Mountain Dwarves, those fickle dwarves, What did we say? They had 2 unused general influence. 2 plus 7 is 9. It's less than 11, so the Blue Mountain Dwarves are out of there. Discarded. Oof, easy come, easy go. Alright, well that was definitely worthwhile. And then I think we play Minions Stir, and this Orc Guard becomes 7 strikes of 10. 7 strikes of 10. Alright, and that's the last hazard they'll have to deal with. Glorfindel is the one who needs to remain untapped. Obviously they're going to dogpile on him. But that just can't be avoided. Everyone else, there's no reason not to tap. So... how does that shake out? 7 strikes of 10, so that's 4, minus 4 prowess modification. If Glorfindel doesn't tap, his 10 prowess, alright, he doesn't tap, so his 10 prowess goes to 7, minus 4 is 3 to beat a 10. 3 to beat a 10. Alright, it all comes down to this. 3 plus 7 is 10. Okay, I'm not going to get the point, but he beat it. Gloin, meanwhile, has, 6 prowess. 6 to beat a 10. He beat it. Balin has 8 to beat a 10. He can't lose, so, okay. So, wow, that was close. But Glorfindel... that's the end of the hazard phase. Alright, the very last hazard phase of the game. And Glorfindel arrives at Thranduil's Hall, untapped. I'm getting excited, we're getting there. Okay, and then I'm going to play Free to Choose on Glorfindel. This says, playable on an item that normally gives 3 or more corruption points. The target item gives 2 fewer corruption points. Discard after the character makes a corruption check. So this card now only gives 1. And, yeah, so that's great. I guess I could have played that on Gandalf. Well, his gives a 2. I mean, yeah, Gandalf will pass his corruption check with anything short of a snake eyes. Whew. Alright, so now we've arrived. And Gandalf will tap, and Glorfindel will tap to attempt to play the elves. So Gandalf is tapping. He has, what did we say? 6. Needs to roll greater than a 9. 6 plus 10. All right, we get the eagles on side. Hooray! And then Glorfindel. Glorfindel has 5 influence. Elves get +1. 6 influence. Must roll greater than an 8. So anything but snake eyes. And he rolled a 3. Alright, well, no need to go overboard. No need to exactly what he needed, and no more. Alright, and that's it. And then we're at the end of turn phase. We may discard 1 and draw 1 Shadowfax to Robin. 3 smoke rings. Alright. Now these cards it may seem pointless to pull these cards, but there are some cards that you can actually apply. I believe like ones that apply corruption check modifiers can still be played, so we could throw this down on Bill. Actually, it makes absolutely no difference because Bilbo is going to pass his corruption check with flying colors, so it doesn't really matter, but yes, we could in theory apply that. I believe that's the case. Yes, these sites are tapped. All right. We've arrived. We have arrived at the free council. I was going to say the Council of Elrond, but they don't call it that. We've arrived at the free council. Huzzah. And now, all right, so let's pull everyone out. This side is the one that's, all right, so Bilbo passes his corruption check with no problem. Gandalf will be discarded on a snake eyes. And he rolls an 11, so that's fine. Gandalf's in. Gildor, same. Alright, he's fine. Glorfindel gets 2 fewer. Okay, so he can't lose. And then that just gets discarded for that corruption check. Gloin can't lose. Balin is discarded on a snake eyes. 5. Alright, so everyone on this team passes. So all the points we see are available to be counted. Now, here we are on this side. I don't think any of these cards can help us, sadly. I don't know. I mean, you know, if cards like Halfling Strength can be played, then can't Anforthi Hastened be played as well? Let's just say these guys are in such a world of hurt. Let's just say that Anforthi Hastened can be played to untap for long. And, yeah. Alright. So, let's make corruption checks for these guys. Let's make it official. Oh boy. I'm so nervous. So, to remind ourselves, Aragorn has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 corruption points. Let's see what happens. 8. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. Oh my lord. Alright, well, for the second time in the game, Aragorn faffs off with all the goodies. Oh, Narsil and Duril. Oh man, how much work was that to get? Alright, well, we're seeing the shortcomings of this deck. Right, okay. Oof. Alright, and Saruman. So, Saruman is 5, Theoden 4. Alright, well, these guys are going to tap to help Saruman. So he is 3, only discarded on a 3 or a 2. Okay, so we get an 11, of course. And then Theoden, he has 4, so on a 4, 3, or 2. And he has an 8. Okay, and then 4 long passes. Baragon, Ireth, everyone's fine. Oh, heartbroken. Yeah, okay. Discard these. I mean, these guys are pretty. So here at the end of the here at the Free Council, we have on Saruman's side, we have Saruman with his Palantir, Theoden with Glamdring, this lively Ent, and then these plucky Minas Tirith Dunedain. All of our Rohirrim have gone, run off or been killed. And then we have all of these amazing factions over here as well, and as well as this item, the White Tree, and a few kills. Okay, and meanwhile, on this side, we've got Bilbo. This cloak doesn't matter. Bilbo with his Lesser Ring, Gandalf with his Dwarven Ring, Gildor with his Ring of Nature, Glorfindel, Gloin, and Balin, as well as a couple of factions and 3 kills. All right, so I'm going to do the math real quick, and then we'll talk about the results. Okay, so I've done the math. It should come as no surprise that Gandalf's team wins. Gandalf has 10 points from characters, 1 from an ally, 6 from factions, 18 from items, 3 from kills, and no miscellaneous points. He had an inordinate amount from items, but not more than half, so he gets to keep all of these. And then on the other side, Saruman has, yes, 2 from characters, Theoden, 2 from allies, 20 from factions with the Sentinels of Numenor modifier, 6 from items, including the sapling of the white tree stored at Minas Tirith, and 2 from kills. But unfortunately, because more than half came from factions, that gets modified down to 12, giving him a total of 24. So he is roundly beaten. Let's take a look. What would the difference have been had Aragorn stayed in? What would we be looking at? Had Aragorn stayed in, we would have 7 more from items, 3 more from characters, and 3 from miscellaneous. That would have made this 13. That would have made this 5. 7, 20. So that means we could have gotten the full amount from the factions. So, what was it? 20, 42. Alright, so it would have been 42 had Aragorn not disappeared at the very end. So, yeah, it made all the difference, and I knew that was the case, but honestly, continuing to play and attempting to remove those corruption checks or corruption cards would have given the opponent time to catch up, while also just putting us at risk for more and more corruption checks. We really just did not have the cards in our deck to deal with all those corruption cards, and that's something we're going to have to think about. It's a vulnerability for this. Too much traveling around, I think. It's fun to try and do all of Aragorn's mission, all of the Aragorn specific missions. It's the Palantir was the MVP of the game, to be sure, except maybe Marvel's told, which is always the MVP. But yeah, it is definitely a vulnerability of this deck. This deck also could use some tuning. I think this deck also required a lot of travel, maybe too much travel. And that's kind of necessary. There just aren't that many sites in one location where you can get rings. You kind of have to travel. It's just a feature of the deck, but maybe a little bit less focus on rings, and try and confine us to a certain area. That might not be a bad way to go. But I think we handled ourselves admirably, and we ended up winning. The corruption hazards were very strong, so it just took a little while to get going. But I think that's the nature of a corruption deck. So we'll take a closer look, but in the battle to command the free peoples and chart the course in the conflict against Sauron, Gandalf has overcome Saruman at the Free Council and is victorious. So, hooray! All right, so we're doing a little post-game look at our deck, and to think about what went right, what went wrong, some room for improvement. This is Gandalf's deck, and so you can see I have my play deck, resources and hazards, 26 resources, 26 hazards. All my decks that I have currently constructed are somewhere between 25 and 30 of each, and I have tried to keep, I have the even number of both. I did clearly, I'm not, I know there's some tournament rules or some special rules where you're supposed to have at least half of your hazards be creatures, or that might even be part of the standard rules. And then these creature/permanent events, creature/short events are half, considered 0.5. I'm clearly way under, if that's the case here, and that that showed maybe a little bit. It took me a while to get the corruption working properly, and so I was sort of helpless for a long time until my opponent had a lot of items, and then I could come and get him. And obviously we did that. This is the deck that won. So there's less to criticize, perhaps, but there's definitely room for improvement, and maybe the entire proportion could be reconsidered. Here are the characters I had. I had a lot of characters in my deck, perhaps too many. This was my starting company up here. One thing that I am thinking about doing with this deck is maybe leaning into the Hobbit side a little bit more, and so I could start with Bilbo instead of Gloin. That brings in another Sage. Sages are awesome. I could lean more into the Sages. I could lean more into the Scouts. I could lean more into the Hobbit side of things. There's a lot of cards that are specific to all three of those types of characters. So, and then, there's a limit to that too. So we also need to keep in mind that we were almost at our limit of half of our points coming from items, and so we need perhaps a more well-rounded marshalling point sources that we could. One thing that I learned from playing this game this go round was that with these larger deck games with rings, you may not need quite as many. I mean, it was great to have 6 rings of these rings in my gold ring items in my hand, because that meant they came up so quickly. We could start on that project right away. But of course, once you've gone through the deck, once these get discarded, once the magic rings get played, so they're back in there again, and you see them again. And so maybe 6 is overkill. Maybe having this many in my sideboard is overkill. And maybe I could have a few more of these cards that help us get where we're going, and lean more into a stealthy companies. When you have 2 hobbits is great, because you're getting 2 characters that only add 1 to the hazard limit. So you don't really get a benefit from 1 hobbit, because it's 0.5 rounds up to, so it's essentially 1. So I had chances to bring in hobbits, but hobbits are harder to bring in unless they start, because they all have to be played at their home side of Bag End. And it's not always the place you want to stop and go to. Although another takeaway that I may take away is more geographic specificity. It's difficult. That's another argument for maybe leaning a little bit away from strictly rings and having other items, other sources of marshalling points, because the ring sites there aren't that many ring sites in the Northwest, but maybe trying to stay a little bit more geographically centered around the Northwest, around the old Kingdom of Arnor, near the Shire, near the Grey Havens, near Rivendell, and not moving around so much. That's one way to avoid some of the nastier hazards that your opponent tries to play on you. It's just not moving around as much, not traveling through as many regions. But again, this is the deck that won, so there's a lot to be said for it. I loved having once the rings finally came online. I loved that. I was very happy getting Gandalf out early, and we did manage to get a lot of rings. That was great. And of course, I really loved, once it finally came online, having this corruption deck working, and we totally ruined our opponent's plans with corruption. And so that was awesome to see. But it did take a while to come online, and if it hadn't worked out as well as it did at the end, we would have lost. And so we might retool things to be a little bit more in the more balanced towards creatures, and maybe even have some creatures that are not undead. I'm trying to be flavorful. I'm trying to be thematic, but you can be too thematic, and we may lean a little away from rings and also from undead, and try and incorporate some, some orcs, some drakes, maybe some animals, some other things. I've been watching. I've been watching people play online recently as I've been uploading my own videos, and that's something that I never did before. And it's obviously I'm learning a lot. I never really played this game with others. I've tried to introduce it to people, but they never got into it. And we were always using my decks. So watching people play online has been eye-opening, and I'm learning a lot. And so I'm seeing some places where I make mistakes, or I have the incorrect concept of the way that things work. And so I'm going to try and get better. I'm going to try and improve the decks. Maybe I might try and expand the sideboard so that we can be more, keep the play deck trim and lean and snappy, but have more adaptability from the sideboard. I did a 10 and 10, essentially 10 resources, 10 hazards. I counted Twilight and these two fellows as hazards, but essentially a 20 deck sideboard, and so that we could expand that and to make things more adaptable, but and maybe rethink the starting company. I do like Glorfindel, because he can bring Annalena under him right away and free up some general influence, but we could rethink these as well. Obviously, she's got the great advantage of being a scout sage, which we like. But if we have Bilbo in, maybe we have a more robust elf to put under Glorfindel, like Haldir. I'll have to think about it. Some of these characters, if we do refocus to the Words of the Northwest, some of these characters could come out, like Boromir and Baragond. Maybe we don't need them as much. But yeah, I look forward to any feedback. If you have any thoughts about the game or about this deck, I'd love to hear them, and I'll rethink it and make some changes, and then maybe we'll discuss it again before we play with this deck again. But I'm going to play some games with some other decks too, some other matchups, and I look forward to showing you all. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned. And now we're going to take a look at Saruman's deck and see how we can assess how the deck went and our performance in this past game. So obviously we lost, and we were on track to win, but we lost. We faced a corruption deck, which turns out may be this deck's weakness. I did like the way that the orc hazards were playing out, but and I did like, and of course I love all these Aragorn specific cards, but I'm wondering whether there's a little bit of a tension between these two, between the orc. The orc deck really benefits from playing multiple cards, playing multiple hazards, which means you'd need to have them in your hand, and some of these missions like reforging Andoril and recruiting the army of the dead, they also require keeping cards in your hand. It's really only two of those combos, but two is a lot, can be a lot. The Palantir made a huge difference. I mean, the Palantir was the total MVP of the entire game. That allowed us to sort of discard freely, and knowing that we could get things back. There's cards that recreate what the Palantir does, but this is one card. It's easy to get with I think Palantir stays. But yes, since so much of our since so much of this deck is dependent on Aragorn, and it was just easy for my opponent to target him down with lots and lots of corruption once their deck really started rolling, and once they pulled their sideboard in. Yeah, so that's something to think about. I think we may still, for flavor reasons, I like orcs and Saruman. I like orcs being the hazard deck or the hazard theme in Saruman's deck. It makes sense in a lot of ways, because the point of the Saruman Aragorn deck is that you're getting a few items from dangerous places, but then you're mostly spending your time along the southern coast in Gondor and recruiting factions and completing missions that revolve around Minas Tirith. So I think, I think there's a way to make it work, but it might take a little, maybe some tweaking here and there. Obviously, we need some corruption mitigation, and that's going to be very important. Maybe if we decide to tweak the rules a little bit and make an expanded sideboard, that's something we can incorporate into the expanded sideboard. We may have a few too many factions. I mean, it's once you have the Sentinels of Numenor, you really want to recruit every faction in the listed areas, but that might just be one too many. Maybe it might make sense to reconsider a few of these, maybe these 2-point guys, the Men of Lebanon, the Men of Anvalas. Yeah, it's or the Woses of the Druidon Forest. I did like the teams we were able to build. I do like having the Rohirrim and the Dunedain. That's also very flavorful, and almost everyone's home side is either Minas Tirith or Edoras, and so that's great. There's a card that gives Dunedain the Sage skill, which would be amazing on Aragorn. It's called Gift of Comprehension, so I might look into maybe incorporating that. If he had Sage, and then maybe have another Marvels Told in the deck. If he had the Sage skill, he might have been able to protect himself from corruption a little bit better. But yeah, I was, up until the end, I was really loving this deck, and I've always liked this deck when I played with it, so I'm going to figure out a way to make it work. It just ran into a hazard strategy that it wasn't really completely ready for this time, and that's sad, but we came so close to to winning, and we were able to do some cool stuff like reforge Anduril, which we kept all of a few seconds until Aragorn ran off with it, which I don't blame him. I mean, it's a great sword. But yeah, so we are we'll play the next game with using 2 different decks than these 2 decks, and in the meantime I'm going to take a look at them. I may make a video about that, or I may just talk about it briefly before the next time I play with this deck, but I'd appreciate any feedback, and if there's any cards that I'm missing that are obviously work well with this deck, then please let me know. Alright, thanks a lot.